Welcome everybody to the December edition of the Illinois Mycological Holiday Party Wingding. No appetizers this year. Wished I could do that. In fact, if I understood correctly, I just got a phone call from somebody who may actually be at Niles at the moment. And I was like, oh, that would be so nice, but we haven't been there like 18 months. Maybe next year, don't know. We'll figure that out. Well, I think we could maybe turn it over to the holiday party such.
You can maybe Matt can go right after me because there's a little bit of overlap between our two things.
That's just fine.
I'm using his pictures and he's using one of mine, I think. Let's see.
Cooperation.
So I finished the species list for our forays yesterday, except for one that went missing in my apartment somewhere. But and today I put together some pictures from our forays. Some of the mushroom pictures are mine, and most of the foray pictures with people in them are by Lorinda Suze, who is not able to join us tonight. She's got another family commitment. I've got a bunch of Lorinda's pictures in here and one or two of Matt Nelsen's pictures in here. But we had 11 forays from May through October with various people coming on the forays. We had, I think, as many as 60 or 65 people at the most on a foray, and maybe a dozen at the least in the spring. And we have over 250 different kinds of fungi, mushrooms, and polypores and everything recorded on those 11 trips for the year. And I'll be putting together a report for the Cook County Forest Preserve District and then maybe share that in a newsletter this winter sometime after that's done. So you get some of that information and more information on what some of the rare things are that we found. So Lorinda and I would like to thank all the IMA members who came on the forays, and that we can't do the forays without you, of course, and all your help with finding the mushrooms and the fungi that are out there in the woods, and challenging all of us to figure out what they are, which is never a finished prospect. We always have mystery mushrooms at every foray. And Matt Nelson's a lichenologist. He's now our president. Yay. He is coming on a bunch of the forays and looking at lichens and other obscure fungi that sometimes get missed because I'm looking for bigger things or things on wood and whatever. So we want to thank all the people that came on the forays. So we had the foray started in May. We did not have our early foray down to Kankakee. Our first foray in May was over in Cook County here, and a little bit wet that day. Found about 39 species of fungi. At a later foray in the spring, we had a new record of Trametes esculi. This is a polypore that is related to Trametes elegans, and it used to go under that name when it was lumped together. So there's a bunch of different fungi that over the last, since 100 years ago, some species were lumped together. There seems to be a bunch of mycologists in the 50s and 60s and 70s that like to be lumping species. And now we're separating them back out again with DNA evidence. So this species existed before. It was just lumped in with Trametes elegans, which is a tropical fungus, and we don't have it up here in the Midwest. So esculi is a southern species in the southern US, and it's moving north. We had our first record in Chicago in 2016 and 2017 at one location. This year we had it at a nearby forest preserve. So that's our second location. There's other records of this on iNaturalist that I was looking at today, and some of them are not Trametes esculi, and some of them just show the bracket from the top. And the photos aren't good enough to narrow down that it's actually the species. So This is very similar to Trametes gibosa, which is much more common. Gibosa has a fuzzy, velvety top with hairs on it. Esculi has a smooth top. There's some other slight differences, sometimes in color when they get older, but the main difference is whether it has hairs on the top or not. So, and the photos on iNaturalist aren't usually good enough to figure that out because the hairs are small. But anyway, we got this new second record for this one. We had several Amanitas that we found this year. And Amanita variocolor is a new name that I started using this year. It's an unpublished name. It's a nomen provisorum, or a non-prov as we call it. It's a scientific name. You can think of it as a nickname in a scientific format, like Fred, but it's written out as Amanita variocolor, but it's not published, so it has no standing or bearing or legality or anything. It's just a placeholder name until Tullis or someone actually publishes this officially. So it's a temporary name for a particular Amanita that's in the Amanita fulva group. And we've been using Amanita fulva name forever and ever, but that is actually a European species. And recently, Tullis and some other people with DNA work figured out that we actually do have the real fulva here, but it looks different than Amanita variocolor. They're both brown-capped mushrooms, but there's some differences. So I checked with Britt Bunyard, and he says these photos that I have are Amanita variocolor, which is fairly common, but it's an upland species with things like oak. So that might be, that's probably a new name for you. And you can see on the iNaturalist map on the bottom, it's a newer concept for a name, so there's not many records on iNaturalist for this mushroom. A more common mushroom is Amanita rhocopus. And this is also a newer name. It was a temporary name before, but then Lamoureux finally published it a couple years ago. And you can see there's more records of that on iNaturalist. We were using the European name Amanita siciliae before. It's a quite pretty Amanita with a gray universal veil. So the warts on the top and the gray the gray veil remnants at the base of the stem are all gray. And also, if you haven't and you want to, go out and get the new Amanita book by Britt Bunyard and Jay Justice. It's really excellent current book on the Amanitas in North America. You can say Amanita or Amanita, however you want. We don't have any official pronunciation for these scientific names. And the original Latin pronunciation is different than the botanical Latin pronunciation, so I don't bother to keep track of it. This is a really pretty Amanita that's Amanita velatipes or velatipes, or however you want to say that. If you say Amanita, then you have to say velatipes, or Amanita velatipus. The purists would say Amanita, in case you want to know. This one, I don't know why we hadn't seen this much before. Had a couple records the last few years, but then previously, I only had it for an IMA foray in 2002. Then we found it in some recent years. This year, there was a lot of it. There were probably 30, 40, or 50 of them at this woods. It's a very pretty Amanita with the veil breaks up into little tiny whitish warts, and it's got a swollen base with a collar on it. Amanita velatipes. This, somebody at a foray told me that they had found this Polyporus umbellatus, and I asked him to send me the picture. Jim found it in June, and it's down in southern Cook County, and this was a location different than where we found it on IMA forays before. And I've also found it once up in McHenry County, once or twice. So we have two areas that we know of it for Chicago. If you find this umbrella polypore, let me know, send me a photo, or put it on Naturalist and let me know, because it's rare around here. It's very pretty too. It's sort of like Hen of the Woods, but it's got a big base with branches, but the tips of the branches have these round circular umbellate caps instead of fan shaped like a Hen of the Woods.
Is it edible?
It's edible, yeah. I didn't really want to say that, but it's a good edible, but it's rare. So
I'd like to know if it has squamules.
Yeah, I don't know if you can see in the pictures, it's kind of a scaly cap. It's got little gray scales on there. Hunter says it's better than Hen of the Woods. I'm going to have to save the chat on this program. And then Matt found this Serraporia spissa. I have a species page on it on my website, Michael Guide, that you can look at. It's widespread. It's both in the east and the west. And Matt had some nice pictures here. It's a polypore. It has pores, but the pores are super, super tiny. So it's hard to get a photo of the actual pores. They're so small. But it's this nice, bright, rusty orange color. And we have it from, as I say here in my database, we've got 11 records from 6 locations. Oh, did I find it, Matt? Okay, I can't remember. This is a really pretty polypore. It's on the more of the underside of a log. Oh, by the way, this doesn't really have a common name. I'm proposing the name orange wax pore, because Serraporia refers to wax pore. This is one of the most cool things we found this year at our annual foray. Fistulina hepatica. I have it in my database who found it. I forgot. Joe and somebody, I think, found it on that foray on a hardwood tree. It's a wood rotter, and it's called beefsteak polypore. It's edible when it's fresh. I don't know if probably any of you have had it. But this is, as far as I can find, this is the first record for Illinois and the Chicago region. And I went on iNaturalist today to check, and somebody found it a few days later somewhere else in Illinois, northern Illinois. And then there's a couple, 1 or 2 other records, but the photos aren't clear enough to really prove that that's Fistulina. So anyway, this is our first physical specimen for it, in any case, for Illinois and Chicago that I know of. This will be going to the Field Museum. The fall forays were well attended. This is our annual joint foray with the Wisconsin Club up in McHenry County that the Wisconsin Club started. And we have been joint participants. Several years ago, the people that ran this foray that lived near that area up in McHenry, or near up there, they moved away. So then Lorinda and I took over. Well, basically, Lorinda took over running this foray. And it's still a joint foray with our club and the Wisconsin Club. We had some members from the Wisconsin Club, and Melissa from the Wisconsin Club did a lot of table talks with the edible mushrooms. So I want to thank her for helping out with that on that foray. And then we had some other good fall forays in September and October, where we had 80 to 100 or so species found. And those lists are all going to be in the newsletter, December newsletter. It's coming out soon. So Lorinda and I want to thank you for your participation in the forays, and hope to see you all on the forays next year.
That was great, Patrick. Thanks.
Thanks.
And that's really a thrill to find something that hasn't been found in this region.
Yeah, I checked. We had about 6 new things for Chicago this year.
Okay. Is everyone able to see purple mushroom?
Yep.
All right.
Gorgeous color.
Cool. So I just have a few slides. Wanted to show some different things I've seen, some on some forays, some on some family trips and other field work I've been fortunate enough to be able to do. This one is one that hopefully Greg or Patrick, I don't think Greg's here, but I know Patrick will know it for sure. This was something I saw in Wisconsin that as best I could figure out seemed kind of along the lines of Lecaria amethystina. It was a kind of small purple sort of mushroom here.
Yep.
All right. Let's see, this next one then is slowly coming apparently. Okay. So this is one that you'll likely see in Chicago if you look around. It's pretty common. This is a rust fungus. So we had a talk earlier in the summer by Kathy Aim from Purdue, who's one of the world experts on rust fungi and their evolution. And this is something that was growing on hawthorn fruits. And these fungi are basidiomycetes, but they're in a group that doesn't contain most of the mushroom-forming basidiomycetes. They're in a kind of separate lineage. They tend to generally make this orange color, and many of them have this really complicated life cycle where they can jump between 2 different plant hosts during the course of their life, during the course of a year, in fact. And so this is one called the cedar hawthorn rust that jumps between cedar trees and hawthorns. And it makes these kind of horns that stick out of the fruits of the hawthorn here that produce different spores that will kind of rain down then. You can kind of see on the very bottom, there's a leaf covered with some kind of orange powder. Those are some of the orange spores that are dropping down from these specialized structures called Aetia. It's a really fascinating group of fungi, and you may have seen some other ones before, but yeah, this is one I see around a bit. This is one actually just on the Field Museum property. So keep an eye out on hawthorns. This is one that Patrick helped me with. This is one that found in Wisconsin, or sorry, in the Chicago area. And it looks kind of like a sick amanita on the left here. And in fact, that's what it is. This is something that Patrick directed me to. It's a fungus, I'm not sure about the pronunciation, Mycogeny rosea, but it's forming this kind of pink crust over this amanita here. And what we've got here on the right is a section through the cap of that amanita. You can kind of see where the gills might have started there, but then they're covered with this kind of pinky, rosy sort of crust that's growing over it. And so this is a fungus that actually parasitizes an amanita that will eat another fungus. So kind of a wild sort of lifestyle among the fungi.
Were you able to save this one?
Yes.
Oh, awesome.
So once I dried it, and yeah, it's in the process of being deposited.
Because I've never seen that. That'll be another new record.
Cool.
It's quite rare.
Okay. All right. Glad to hear that. This is one that Patrick and I came across on one of the forays. This is another kind of weird one that's in kind of that same group as the rust fungi. This is something called Eocronartium muscicola. This is a fungus that's a parasite on mosses, and it will make these white stalks that stick up and produce spores. So this is another basidiomycete, but kind of in a group that's separate from most of the mushroom forming ones. And this is one we found on kind of a downed tree. It looked a little more robust, but it dried out pretty quickly in the sunlight. But yeah, this is something that Patrick was telling me is the first record for the Chicago region and was previously collected in 1920 by Harper in Geneseo in Henry County. So that was an exciting find we had that morning out on the foray. Next up, I'm getting a little exotic here. I was fortunate enough to be able to go to the Czech Republic for a small meeting, and this was an image of this lichen called rhizocarpon. This is called the map lichen. You can see it up close on the right. You can see all these different individuals. It's forming this mosaic on this rock surface, and all those little lines separating it are indicating separate individuals that are kind of all growing together and competing for space. And on the left here, then, that's just kind of a macro shot standing back, and you can see just how covered these rocks are with that lichen. So this is a crusty lichen that makes this kind of bright yellowy and black color. This is something that some people use to try to estimate the age of a substrate. So for instance, they might say, well, this lichen is X many centimeters across. And if we know it grows at 1 centimeter per 5 years, you know, we can estimate its age, and that will tell us how long the lichen has been there. And this is then used in trying to estimate the age of petroglyphs, so like historic artwork on rock surfaces, or when glaciers have retreated, so you know how long that rock has been exposed. Another one I was able to see on there was this Colostera viscosa. This really pretty bright orange one that was popping up here. This is a decomposer fungus that's kind of early diverging among some of the mushroom forming fungi. Is there anything else you'd like to add about this, Patrick? Oh, you got to unmute yourself.
This is one of the jelly fungi. It's a jelly coral.
And then this is another one that I saw on the trip, and Patrick helped me again with the ID. This is in the auriculariales, so kind of the wood ear group of fungi. This is something that it was kind of this really kind of bright orangey apricot sort of color, and you can see the underside here. This is another decomposer. Patrick, do you have anything else to add about this one?
No, I'm jealous because I've never seen it, or never found it anyway.
Yeah, I was pretty tickled. That's for sure. Then again, I was extremely fortunate this year, and I was able to go to Ecuador for a little while. And this was something I saw growing out of a kind of vertical standing dead tree, basically. And I'm not really sure what this is, and was wondering if anyone had any ideas.
Yeah, I have to check the name so I don't say the wrong name, but it's a really awesome, cool jelly. I'll look it up online, and then I'll put the name in the chat here.
Okay.
It might be, my guess is Dacryphanex elegans, but I have to verify that name. Not sure, okay. But it's got this sort of up. So this is a basidiomycete, and they shoot their spores off a short ways into the air. So it's a cup shape, but it's facing down because the spores get shot and then they come out of the cup. And it's got a stalk, so it's really cool.
Exactly as Patrick said, these were all aiming down like that. Just, yeah, really struck me when I spotted it. It's like, oh man.
I'm assuming it's the same species we have here, but you can find it in the Midwest.
Okay, cool. All right, thank you. This was another thing I saw on my trip in Ecuador. I saw these little bits. I was looking for lichens and kind of looking at soil lichens, and I saw these bits up top here sticking up above the ground, and I grabbed it. I'm like, what is this? And then I had it in my hand, and I started kind of digging down and found this grub that it was attached to, and was like, oh my gosh, okay, yes, now I see it. This is basically like the asexual morph of of a cordyceps. So one of these groups that goes after different types of invertebrates and kills them. So doing some searching, I think this is on the cordyceps side of thing. There's a couple of groups that do this. There's Ophiocordyceps, which is one that's well known to kind of attack ants. This is another group called Cordyceps, and the kind of asexual stage had previously been called Issaria. But yeah, I was really excited to see some of that, because the only other time I'd ever found that was on a Smith foray in Michigan. This is a lichen I found on there too. This is called Philobaeus imbricata. This was growing on soil. It makes these little lobes or squamules at the base here that contain the algae that are photosynthesizing and providing all of the food for that fungus. And then in turn, what's going on here is these pink things sticking up are actually stalked apothecia. So they're stalked fruiting bodies that the fungus is producing, and it'll shoot spores out from there. So yeah, this is kind of all over these kind of banks along the sides of the path. This was another one that was coming up kind of similar. It turns out they're not all that related though. They're actually in different orders, but again, it's kind of doing this stalked fruiting body sort of thing here, where it's got these stalks, these kind of pinkish apothecia. This one's making kind of a crusty phallus over the surface of rocks here. That crusty surface has algae in it. And again, they're photosynthesizing and feeding the fungus. One of the other neat things was I was able to see some different, so most of the lichen fungi, if you kind of step back and think about more broadly about the fungal kingdom, most of them are in the phylum Ascomycota, which contains things like morels, penicillium, Saccharomyces, like the yeast we use for bread and beer. But there's a handful of different groups in the Basidiomycota, which is where we have most of the mushrooms and the rust fungi. And this is one of those kind of special Basidiomycete lichens. And on the right here is kind of a close-up. You can see this kind of mat of algae growing out. This is kind of a vertical face along the side of a path, this mat of algae, and then these Basidiomycete fruiting bodies kind of popping up here, these kind of coralloid or clavarioid type structures kind of popping up here that will release the spores. And this on the left is just kind of a macro shot. Here's the trail. And then you can see just tons of them kind of popping up along here, this little forest of multiclavulas. And then another separate group of Basidiomycete lichens, there's a good amount of diversity of this group, which is kind of special to see as well. These are some Basidiomycetes that will associate with cyanobacteria, and it's a very special type of cyanobacteria that so far has only been found in association with lichen fungi. And just a handful of different groups of fungi associate with these algae. And you can see they make a lot of really different kinds of shapes and textures and such. You had some here on this little twig here, kind of looks like they're forming little shell fungi coming out, and you can see the cyanobacteria in there that are making that kind of bluey green kind of color. This was a kind of loby one growing along a tree, and then all along different rock faces and road cuts, you can get tons of these coras kind of popping up that make these cute little lobes all over the place. And so with that, I think it's probably best if I stop and we move on to someone else. So thanks a lot, everyone. And I will pass it along to the next person.
All right, Stephanie. Now, I hope I don't goof this up.
I hope I don't goof this up. That's a hard act to follow. Thank you for all of those wonderful pictures, Matt and Patrick.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
But for those who have tuned in late, Matt is our new president.
Yay.
Yay. Yay. Thank you. Stephanie, can you see your pictures?
I sure can, and I hope that other
Great.
folks can as well. There is just one slide, and I suppose I could say it's in honor of our incoming president and lichenologist. I was in Iceland over in the autumn, and came back with this pretty picture of some lichens and some moss in the Snæfellsnes Peninsula in Iceland, which is sort of on the west central coast of the country. And, apologies, Matt, I went all the way to Iceland and did not even come back with a single picture of Chytraria icelandica, the most famous lichen of them all from Iceland. But thought that maybe the group would enjoy this pretty lichen with a really pretty background.
We're speechless.
It's lovely.
Yeah, it's beautiful. That's really cool.
What are all those lichens, Matt?
So it looks like.
You want me to try to enlarge it a little bit?
There's definitely some it looks like some xanthoria there, that bright orange that you have there, and that makes kind of a leafy sort of growth form there, a foliose growth form we call it. And then there's a whole bunch of kind of whitish ones up above that, but I can't quite figure out who they are. They look kind of crusty.
Yeah.
Number of like liver or mosses or bryophytes down here kind of popping out. So those mosses and the bryophytes and lichens tend to kind of occupy similar habitats and grow all in amongst one another. But what's cool about them is that they're able to make a living on those habitats. So these lichens are just using that rock as a place to live. They're not eating the rock really. They're just kind of hanging out there, and those algae are photosynthesizing, making food and feeding the fungus, and the fungus in turn is constructing that thallus, that structure that you see that houses the algae. So that's really cool. Thanks, Stephanie.
Yeah, wish it was a little bit more in focus, but I didn't have a tripod, and frankly, it was really cold.
Oh, that's great. That's great. They're really hard.
Is that a cemetery on the top?
So that's a church. Yes, the church and the cemetery. So what we're seeing there is the retaining wall for the cemetery.
Oh, okay. So I thought that was a cliff face or something. I was wondering if the soil was deep enough for the cemetery.
Yeah, so they built up the wall in order to lay the people to rest.
Oh, okay.
And how cold was it, by the way?
Not as cold as it is in Chicago today. Got to say that. But, chilly enough when I was spending a lot of time outside. I was there in early October, and temperatures ranged from about 35 to 45 most days.
Okay, that's cool.
And interestingly enough, very, very few mushrooms in Iceland because very, very few trees. Most of the trees that are around there are recent imports into the island. But lichens everywhere.
Well, there's always something to look at, If it weren't that, it would be birds or something else. So
Thanks for the opportunity to share.
Oh, and thank you for sharing. That was great. So I know Hunter has something to contribute. I'm just checking if there's anybody else. Okay, then Hunter, you're the next one.
Last minute volunteers are welcome. If you've got any pictures that you can get across quickly or share quickly, you're welcome to just send Kathy a message.
Yeah, that'll be fine. But meanwhile, Hunter, I think it's your turn, if that's okay.
Sounds good. Hi, everyone. First, I just want to say thank you so much to all the people taking on board positions. And I'm just so grateful that the club will have people to keep it going, and just really happy, and just want to say if anyone needs any help in any area to feel free to call on me, especially if you just have like specific tasks, just let me know and I will do it. So just really glad. These are just photos from this year. I wanted to just use stuff from this year, and basically I got to get away a few different places just in the US. But I'm going to start with some from Illinois and the center of the universe, of course. And starting with this stemonitis that actually my husband spotted in DeKalb County. And I just enjoyed taking photographs of it. And we joke a lot. He's like, I gave you stemonitis. I'm like, I know, I'm suffering from stemonitis. But that was fun. And these were in the Bloomington area where he lives and works, actually. And I haven't ID'd all of these. I know I've got I think a Lacinum in the middle, and then a couple Tilapilus, Rubro-brunescens, Tilapilus, Plumioviolaceus, perhaps. So if anyone has a better idea, I'd love to hear them chime in.
Oh, that sounds good to me.
Okay, good.
The ones on the right.
I'm hoping.
The ones on the right look like they got the olive color on the stem there for the. I think that's Rubro-bruneus that does that. I can't remember.
And I can't either. It's been a while since I've looked at these, but I see what you're talking about, so I can review that, see if I can pinpoint it. And then I'm hoping this is Chloris cyborea, but I wasn't really sure if that it wasn't just like mold or something. But it was a pretty cool specimen if it is pretty. And just a scleroderma open. I thought it looked really neat to see those black spores. And actually the first time I ever saw the scleroderma, it was like this. And I was like, I had no idea what it was. It was actually completely cleaned out of spores. And I thought something had hatched out of an egg from like another planet. It was pretty neat, but now I'm familiar with it. This was one of my best finds. I had put it on our Facebook page, so maybe people have seen it already, but J-strum triplex, and I found like maybe 13 of these in one spot, and they were really beautiful. This was in Lee County near where I live, along the Rock River. And then going to the Hiles area in last weekend of September, I saw this trichoma. I guess I'm not really sure which trichoma it is, but I think it's called man on horseback, a common name, or at least I was told that by somebody. Patrick, do you remember which trichoma this is? Because I think I asked you.
Yeah, it's in that group. I always have to look in the book. But it's got yellow on the stem. This looks like it has white gills, so it might be one of the other ones. There's a leucophyllum.
Yeah, I'm not. Okay. Yeah. Or perhaps that. And then these were really beautiful. Suillus clintonianus. And they're basically like a bog suillus in the bog areas up in Wisconsin. And then some coral, and I haven't had the time to actually put a name on which one this is. if anyone knows and wants to chime in, that'd be great. And so then most recently, like just a month ago, not even, I went down to Texas. And so I've got some pics from the Angelina National Forest. This is Cortinarius violaceus, I believe. And Philotopsis nigulans. And then I spent a little time in the Sabine National Forest there and found a lot of Amanita persicina. And this polypore was just really striking, this Inocutus dryophylla, I believe. And then I attended 2 forays down there with GSMS, which I've been a member of on and off for a long time, actually. And you may have heard they're having their annual foray this coming weekend. So if you want to jump in your car and go down and join them, it's not too late. There's a lot of rain going on this week in the area, and I'm in Mississippi right now. I'm not going to be able to attend this upcoming event, which is why I went to these like prior ones. But this is Lactarius paradaxis from one of the forays, and it's really a really pretty Lactarius. It has a red staining, so it sort of looks like Lactarius indigo, but the gills are kind of red, and there's a red staining, and it doesn't really have those pothole strobiculate as much. This was really cool. Xylaria growing on magnolia. It's Xylaria magnoliae, and then also I think it's Strobilaris, the little tiny mushrooms. I think that's what we got going there. And then a hypomyces attacking a grasshopper, which was super cool. I don't know much more about it. We were trying to figure out, like, so is that what killed this grasshopper then, like the cordyceps do, or did it occur like after it died? I don't know. And then a second foray with GSMS, and this is a jelly-stalked puffball or jelly-stalk puffballs, and Latin name is Calostoma cinnabarina. And these are just really, really neat. They have these like little cookie cutter Christmas trees on the top in red that it's just really different. And that's it. And then I also have a little poem I wanted to share. In addition to the first morale, which I hope we get to do, I've got this new poem, Where the Mushrooms Are. So I can just read it to you. Where the mushrooms are, some clustered together, some spread afar. This is where the mushrooms are. Tucked under a leaf or high in a tree, mushrooms there for all to see. Purple and red, orange and white, mushrooms really are a sight. Growing from bark or straight from the ground, mushrooms are all around. On private or public, posted or not, for identification purposes or for the pot. For dinner, for dyes, for medicine too, down the path of my predecessors, a deer trail or two. There's mushrooms for me and mushrooms for you. From sidewalk cracks onto leaf backs, out of insects' heads, colored yarns and threads, spore prints and more prints, gill poured and toothed. Sometimes it requires the mind of a sleuth to find where the mushrooms are. And that is it.
That is so sweet.
Yeah.
That
yay.
was
And
delightful.
it captures the
Very
situation too. Now, Hunter, I want to bring you back in a few minutes for the epic song. But a few people have since volunteered to show a few images. So we'll come back to you in a few minutes. Is that okay?
Okay, Kathy, can you put the song up from what I sent you?
Yes, I'll make that part work. She says, and then we'll see what
in
happens.
a few minutes.
If it happens, yeah. But meanwhile, we'll.
Perfect.
So if you could unshare.
Yeah,
Pamela, are
I
you
just
ready
stopped my
to
broadcast.
Cool. So Pamela, are you ready to show your pictures?
Yes, it's just a couple, and they're
That's great.
Just for fun. There's nothing scientific about them particularly. What do I do? Just share my screen?
Yep.
Okay.
And you're spotlighted for the moment. And then the gentleman who oh wow.
Yay.
These mushrooms were actually taken at the forays, the first couple ones here at the last foray here early in November. And the other one was another outing. I don't remember when or exactly where, but it was kind of a nice picture. And I had we had an occasion for one of the photography groups to show edible things. So I thought, well, I'm going to try mushrooms. I have no idea if these particular species are edible, but they were there because of a nice photograph and so on. So this is one from November. This is another one from the November. This was actually taken in the field and subjected to some adjustments after the fact. And this one was, I don't know exactly where this was taken, but as it turns out, it kind of has a little bit of a holiday sort of a fairy sort of a lilt to it. And so I thought it might be kind of nice for a gathering at this time of the year.
Oh yeah.
That's
Looks like you planned it.
Just the three. I have no idea what this is. And maybe Patrick knows what it is.
It might be the mica inky cap. That's my guess.
Yeah, I was wondering about these were in a tree, in a hollow of a tree. So that's okay. Very good. That's it. That's it.
Well, appreciate that.
Back to you.
Okie doke. And now I'm going to show the picture. Can you see that?
Yes.
Pretty dramatic.
Yeah, this is a Julian Nurkowski. I found this up in Wisconsin. It would be a little bit east and north of Winona, Minnesota. I picked it for just the look of it. It's all in one piece. Unfortunately, I didn't take a picture of the bottom, but the color is just so nice. I brought it home. I wanted to dry it, but unfortunately, when I dried it, a lot of the oranges kind of faded away. But I'll leave it up to you to identify it. It looks like some sort of a polyspore, but I'm not sure what exactly that is. I really took it for the looks.
It's not the worst thing. Any comments from anybody?
Yeah, it's one of the Leacock or chicken mushrooms. It's a good edible, but they don't dry well. Yeah.
So the scale of this is maybe 8 inches across. How big is it?
Sorry. I would say it was probably more like a foot across. And you could see the one on the right, and there's a big one on the left, but they were conjoined together. So and the big one is probably like the palm of your hand. like I said, I just took it for, it was just such an unusual, striking color.
Definitely. Well, it just looks, it has a nice shape to it as well. Okay. So are there any more images? If not, we can proceed to the epic closing of all of our holiday parties for the last few years. All right. So this is from Hunter.
Did we all unmute?
Yeah, this is a sing-along.
There's more I did see.
And
On the woods beneath an elm tree. It was just as they said. On a self-easing hill up the sky, but no guilt. There's morale on the first day of May, and the first night goodnight on my knees in my life I did no did I
As I crossed it in my
go gray or black.
Morale, morale,
from the corner of my eyes,
rising to rise, 18
across the
nothing quite like the rush. You think compared when you find the big flush. It is hard you didn't go to work and miss the Janice. And then I heard a knock as the sleep by ray until Mother's Day. And my
This has to be so funny to hear later.
My goodness.
With all of the time delays and latency you get from Zoom, nobody can manage to get to be together.
No, that's what's so funny about it. Hopefully next year we'll be in the same room at the same time. Happy hunting revision.
I really want to hear what the recordings every like.
All right, that's it.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Yes.
holidays.
Yeah,
And
Merry
see you
Christmas,
next
Happy
year.
Hanukkah.
Happy holidays, everyone.
To you too. And Matt, we wish you a good year ahead.
Yes, indeed.
Same to you
We'll
all.
try to make it painless.
Thanks to you all.
All righty.
Looking forward
See
to
you
it.
all next year. And hopefully maybe in person for one of our indoor meetings, but I guess that's board discussion at some point. All righty, y'all. Thank you much. Anything else? I didn't think so. All right. Good night, all.
Good night.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.